Why anti-capitalism cannot solve Malthusian time. One of the most predictable reactions to the theory of Malthusian time is the claim that capitalism is ultimately responsible for the condition being described. The argument typically unfolds along familiar lines. People are exhausted because capitalism demands productivity. People are distracted because capitalism monetizes attention. People feel inadequate because capitalism encourages competition. People feel fragmented because capitalism turns everything into a market. People struggle to rest because capitalism rewards perpetual activity. Therefore, remove capitalism and the problem disappears. This conclusion possesses enormous rhetorical appeal because it offers something modern people desperately crave: a villain. The complexity of existence is reduced to a single explanatory enemy. One need not wrestle with mortality, consciousness, meaning, temptation, discipline, technological acceleration, or the limitations of human nature. Instead, one points toward capitalism and declares the mystery solved. The attraction is understandable. The conclusion is mistaken. Not because capitalism is flawless, not because markets are incapable of producing distortions, not because corporations are incapable of exploiting human weaknesses, but because Malthusian time operates at a deeper level than economic systems alone. The central claim of Malthusian time is that finite consciousness exists under conditions of expanding demands. The scarcity being described is not fundamentally money, labor, food, land, or capital. The scarcity is time itself. More specifically, it is the finite duration of conscious human existence. 24 hours remain 24 hours regardless of economic ideology. The clock has survived every revolution. This point sounds almost trivial until one considers its implications fully. The anti-capitalist critique often assumes that modern exhaustion emerges primarily because market systems impose too many demands upon individuals, yet history provides little evidence that alternative systems eliminate such pressure. They merely alter their source. The 20th century supplied abundant opportunities to test this proposition. Communist states did not abolish temporal scarcity, they just redistributed it. They did not eliminate psychological pressure, they just reconfigured it. They did not free human beings from demands. They simply replaced market demands with bureaucratic demands, ideological demands, administrative demands, and political demands. The average citizen of a centrally planned economy frequently spent staggering portions of his life navigating shortages, queues, permissions, regulations, forms, approvals, inspections, and inefficiencies. Time disappeared not through consumer choice, but through institutional dysfunction. The Western anti-capitalist often imagined himself heroically resisting corporate oppression while posting from a smartphone assembled through global supply chains, connected to information networks built through extraordinary technological innovation, sitting beneath electric lighting in a climate-controlled room filled with inexpensive consumer goods. He condemns capitalism while benefiting from a level of material abundance so extreme that previous generations would have regarded it as aristocratic luxury. This contradiction rarely receives the attention it deserves. Indeed, one of the most revealing features of modern anti-capitalism is that it frequently emerges not from conditions of scarcity, but from conditions of abundance. The revolutionary rhetoric grows loudest precisely where material needs have been satisfied sufficiently for people to focus on higher order dissatisfaction. This observation is not intended as mockery, it is intended as diagnosis. Malthusian time becomes visible because capitalism solved enormous portions of the material problem. That sentence deserves careful consideration. For centuries, humanity struggled primarily against external scarcity: food scarcity, energy scarcity, transportation scarcity, information scarcity, medical scarcity, communication scarcity, market economies, technological innovation, scientific advancement, and industrial production dramatically reduced many of these constraints. The result was not paradise. The result was exposure. Humanity discovered that once material scarcity weakens, deeper forms of scarcity emerge into view: meaning, attention, purpose, orientation, mortality. These problems cannot be solved merely through economic redistribution because they did not originate economically. The anti-capitalist often behaves as though spiritual and existential questions are merely economic questions wearing disguises. Anxiety becomes economics, alienation becomes economics, meaning becomes economics, identity becomes economics, community becomes economics. Everything eventually becomes economics. This tendency resembles a kind of secular theology. The capitalist is Satan, the corporation is original sin, the revolution is salvation, the classless society is heaven, and history itself is redemption. One need not be religious to notice the resemblance. The structure remains surprisingly familiar. The difficulty is that reality refuses to cooperate. Human beings continued experiencing loneliness under socialist systems. They continued experiencing anxiety. They continued experiencing addiction. They continued experiencing meaninglessness. They continued experiencing despair. Indeed, some of the most spiritually exhausted societies in modern history emerged under explicitly anti-capitalist governments. This should force serious thinkers to ask whether the problem lies somewhere deeper. Malthusian Time suggests that it does. The problem is not that capitalism created finite existence. The problem is that capitalism exposed finite existence more clearly. A poor peasant rarely spends much time contemplating existential optimization because survival itself structures his priorities automatically. Prosperity removes many external constraints, thereby forcing individuals to confront internal questions directly. What deserves my attention? What deserves my life? What should I become? What matters? These questions become unavoidable once survival ceases occupying every waking moment. Ironically, many anti-capitalist thinkers misdiagnose abundance-induced problems as proof against abundance itself. A man survives a shipwreck, reaches shore successfully, and immediately begins complaining about sunburn. The complaint may be real. The diagnosis is, of course, absurd. This is not to deny genuine excesses within market societies. Corporations absolutely compete for attention. Advertising absolutely exploits psychological vulnerabilities. Algorithms absolutely optimize for engagement. Consumer culture absolutely encourages comparison and status anxiety. The mistake lies in assuming these tendencies represent uniquely capitalist phenomena. Political movements compete for attention. Activists compete for attention. Governments compete for attention. Universities compete for attention. Journalists compete for attention. Religious institutions compete for attention. Every organized system seeking influence competes for attention. The battlefield transcends economics. Malthusian Time concerns the struggle over consciousness itself. The anti-capitalist often notices only one army fighting the war. He points toward corporations while ignoring bureaucracies. He notices advertisers while ignoring ideologues. He notices brands while ignoring political movements. He notices consumerism while ignoring propaganda. This selective blindness produces incomplete analysis. The deeper reality is that modern individuals inhabit environments where every major institution seeks increasing access to finite consciousness. Market actors participate in this struggle, so do non-market actors. The problem is structural rather than narrowly economic. This distinction matters because it changes the solution. If capitalism were the root problem, political revolution might plausibly resolve Malthusian time. If finite consciousness confronted by infinite demands is the root problem, political revolution merely rearranges the furniture. The clock continues ticking. The attention remains finite. The lifespan remains finite. The competition remains. And here we encounter perhaps the most uncomfortable truth for contemporary political thought. Malthusian time ultimately returns responsibility to the individual. Not exclusively, not absolutely, but unavoidably. The left often prefers explanations emphasizing systems because systems can be criticized collectively. Personal discipline, by contrast, places demands upon the self. It is easier to denounce capitalism than to govern attention. It's easier to blame algorithms than to resist them. It's easier to critique consumer culture than to refuse consumption. Yet, no political arrangement can eliminate the necessity of self-governance. The smartphone may become a university or a slot machine. The internet may become a library or a casino. The difference increasingly depends upon the individual directing the tool. This does not mean everyone succeeds equally. It means sovereignty still matters. And that is the final reason anti-capitalism cannot solve Malthusian time. The theory identifies a scarcity that survives every economic system. The scarcity is not wealth, it's not labor, it's not production, it's not ownership. It is the finite duration of conscious existence itself. Markets did not create this condition. Governments cannot abolish it, and revolutions cannot eliminate it. The clock remains the most stubborn fact in human affairs. And any philosophy that promises liberation without first reckoning with that reality is offering not a solution, but an illusion.